Opening a speech is probably one of the hardest things that people have to figure out. Whether you give keynotes or breakouts, workshops or webinars, you're presenting to your team, whatever, you're giving a wedding toast, it doesn't matter. When you give a presentation of some kind, the opener is often where we stumble. We meander to the start, we use a lot of filler words, we make a lot of basic mistakes. But when you actually nail an opener, it feels freeing. It sets the tone for both the lesson you want to impart in your presentation and the way you feel as a performer and a communicator. The audience gets what they need from you. Because frankly, when you start any speech or presentation, there's only one thing the audience really wants to hear you say. Now, it's implied based on what you actually say, but implied in your words is the only thing they really want to hear, which is you're in good hands. Every audience wants to feel they're in good hands. You ever sit in a presentation and you can tell from the very beginning, you're like, oh, this is going to be tough. This is going to be rough, right? Or the opposite happens and it feels so good when they open whatever type of speech they're giving with a great line, a great moment, a great story, a great feeling to it. Immediately, you're like, oh, this is going to be good. Okay, all right. I can't wait for the rest of this, because if you're sitting in that audience, you want to know that you're in good hands. And so let's take a look now at the opening keynote speech from my dear friend and yours, the great Ann Handley. She's an author and keynote speaker. And we're going to look at the opening of a talk that she gave in 2023. And we're going to just react and see what we can find. And then after I actually watch this with you, we will make sense of a framework or maybe a series of prompts that you can deploy and you can use to craft stronger openers. All right, let's see what Ann does in this speech.
A week ago, I was in San Francisco and I entered the stage in the usual way with money guns ablazing.
Like right away, you know you're in good hands. A week ago, pause. And then I entered the stage, pause, in the usual way, ... If I were scripting it, it might sound like that. You right away can tell Ann is comfortable, Ann knows where this is going, Ann knows how to make sure you go along for the ride. It's great. I'm like, thankfully this is going to be a great talk. Oh, okay, let's keep going. Can't wait.
I just walked in. Yeah. You know how they say you should dance like no one's watching? And then you do? And then they take it and they put it on LinkedIn?
The sarcastic, yeah, like the trail off at the end there really makes it work. I think partly what Ann is doing is she's setting a tone of both like confidence and awkwardness. Maybe she didn't set out to say like, how do I project confidence and awkwardness, but you get a feel for it when you're a real pro like Ann, when you know what you're doing on the stage. And so, using the language of her hand motions there, the money guns ablazing, and people in the audience, both in the clip she shared and in the audience of this speech, are going, yeah. And she's like, yeah. It's almost like she's saying, yeah, but she's gripping us every step along the way. It's brilliant. It's great. Here, let's see what else we can find.
And then they take it and they put it on LinkedIn, and thousands of people watch it, including you. And that's the painful part. Because here's the thing, I didn't know this about myself, that I literally dance.
Did you notice what she did there? Now, this is something you do when you're very comfortable on stage. I'm not saying everybody has to do this. I think public speaking coaches get a little bit too obsessed with moves like this, especially too early in someone's journey, or maybe in a way that's inauthentic even to a veteran speaker. But movement, of course, is a part of how you're conveying your ideas. And Ann was sort of leaning forward, talking to the audience directly. And then she said, but here's the thing, right? And there's like a little bit of an open loop. The word but is a very tiny form of an open loop. That's that moment that creates a question in your mind. I walk downstairs and I grab the mug off the shelf that has 5 words that inspire me. That's an open loop. You want to know what the 5 words are on the mug, right? Game of Thrones was a 10-year long open loop. Who will sit on the Iron Throne at the very end of this Game of Thrones? You got to make sure the payoff matches the buildup, by the way, because then you're like, oh, that guy? Really? Anyways, spoiler alert. So back to Ann, she's adding an open loop. But here's the thing. What's the thing? But what, Ann? So we're gripped every single moment. She's purchasing our attention every single moment without being schlocky and overly sensationalized, without being a walking, talking version of clickbait. That's what she's doing. And then she moves back to the physical movement element. But here's the thing you don't realize about yourself, or no one told me about myself, that prompted a movement. When I first started speaking, I looked like a caged lion. I had no intentional movement. And again, you can take this too far and get way too in your head about like sweeping arm gestures and Shakespeare in the park because you were trained by some, theater kid who only cares about the performance physically and they don't think about your ideas or the audience, whatever, or they don't know how to model out your behavior to match who you really are. And so you feel like you've been kind of printed out of a training program to be their version of a speaker. Not talking about doing that. But when I first started, my movement was without purpose. I just paced, caged lion, paced back and forth. And it wasn't until I realized, well, hold on a second. There's a singular premise to every speech that we give, or there should be. That premise represents a new way of thinking about something and or doing something that we want them to embrace. And early moments in the speech set up that premise and build an argument for buy-in so people adopt it as their own. And later moments in the speech teach you what to do with it, how to change your behavior. Stories, frameworks, advice, etc. So it's the how to think, arriving to the premise that changes how you think, and then the how-to. And that's true of a keynote, that's true of a breakout, and you just change the calibration and content velocity or saturation on both sides, depending on your style, your purpose, your idea, and whether or not you're a keynote or a breakout, right? Breakouts are more how-to forward. Keynotes are more how to think forward. But the point here is, when I realized, wait, a speech is me trying to change something with the audience, which means I have to address what's currently broken or bad and then present something better, which I think is good. I have to tell stories where the person in the story goes through periods that are bad and then changes towards the good. And so I can divide the stage into two, where every time I'm on this side of the stage, it's the conventional wisdom, the status quo, the friction, the problem, the bad half, and then all the good stuff on the other side. So when I tell the story of that founder, I'm able to move with intention, arriving at the middle during the turning points of the story, and then sharing their lessons learned, the good stuff, what we can do differently on the other half of the stage. So Ann here is exhibiting a very small instance of this, where she was standing still and then started to move with intention, and it really brings you along for the journey, but also it harnesses your physicality up there. Because a lot of people will rehearse in their office or a hotel room or sitting down in an office like this, and then they go and give a speech on a real platform, a real stage, and all of a sudden there's this world of variables, which is your hands, your body, the podium, the lights, the actual stage itself, and everyone watching you, and they're not just right in front of you, right? And so the idea that we need really detailed, like down to the tiny micro motion movements in our heads ready to go, that serves some people and maybe at different stages of their journey. But we do need to prepare to harness movement. So that's my rant on movement, more than you bargained for. Let's keep it going with Ann. I'll back it up a little bit so we can really hear what's going on here.
A week ago, I was in San Francisco and I entered the stage in the usual way.
The usual way.
With money guns ablazing. I just walked in. Yeah. Yeah. You know how they say you should dance like no one's watching? And then you do? And then they take it and they put it on LinkedIn? And thousands of people watch it, including you.
Did you hear the tone of voice carrying her message too? It really brought you along for the ride here emotionally, right? You know how they say dance like people, like no one's watching, and then you do, and then they put it like it's continuing the cliche advice, but with new things that are not part of the cliche, but in the same tone, delivered in the same voice as the cliche, to be like, man, there's more to the story here. So just such a brilliant little move by Ann to be like, and then there's more tension in her voice, and you can feel it in your chest because she's kind of compressing her air a little bit. Really subtle moves. And again, not necessarily consciously decided upon. Like Ann isn't like, how do I strain my voice in, second number 25 of my presentation? She's just rehearsing, writing, hearing her voice as she writes. She's got a feel for it, which we all do as speakers once you've given enough speeches. And you can kind of sense like the question is in and of itself leading to building on the question. You know how they tell you dance like no one's watching? And everyone's like, yeah. And then you do. Oh, yeah. And then they film it and put it on YouTube. Oh, okay. And then thousands of people watch it, including you. Again, you get a feel for these things. And these little things might feel like I'm sort of nitpicking, or if you love the craft as I do, you're lighting up. But I point them out even to folks who might not care about the craft in the same way, to illustrate the fact that these little moments will make or break whether or not somebody thinks highly of you, somebody feels they're in good hands, and your opener actually lands. Because it is the opener that does this outlier job of earning trust and also cementing people's memory of you. There's something called the primacy and recency effect, which suggests that the first and last moments of a presentation or an experience are why they remember you. That's what creates the memory the most. They recall those things the most. So if you meander to the start, or you gave it your all but really didn't land the joke because these little things were all out of whack or not rehearsed well, as they were with Ann, they were really spot on and clearly very well rehearsed by Ann. But if it's not the case and you kind of get a mediocre opener out there, even if you arrive to something really strong after that and people go, oh, thank God it's better now, they're going to remember the opener more than the better stuff in the middle. That's the science. That's what the science suggests. So again, these things might seem small, but they really do matter. Okay, let's see where this goes with Ann now.
And that's the painful part. Because here's the thing. I didn't know this about myself.
End of the movement.
That I literally dance with my legs and my arms out like this, all splayed like a starfish. Just kind of willing.
There's some awkward chuckles. Splayed like a starfish. Couple chuckles in the crowd. Ann is so comfortable with silence. If you want to spot somebody who is calmly confident, very comfortable, who's a professional, and I don't mean they get paid to speak as Ann does. Maybe you don't get paid to speak, but you approach it as a pro. You are a professional speaker in my book. And if you want a hallmark, or if there is any one hallmark of a professional speaker, it is the pause. It is the silence. It is the willingness to say one thing and let it land. And let you absorb it. And this matters a ton for pacing. This matters because it's a good juxtaposition to speeding up your voice. And now you're trying to keep up with me. There's the juxtaposition you can draw to speed and pacing. But also, this is more to the point of lots of reasons a speech falls apart, is if the audience is trying to make sense of what you just said and you rush ahead, now they're like, oh, she's continuing to talk. Oh my gosh, I got to keep up. And now they're falling behind. And now they're more and more confused because you're continuing to talk and they're still making sense of what you just said. And now they're frustrated, and now they're out. This is true of a podcast, a video, and speaking. Speaking in particular, there's no pause button. I can't scrabble back when I'm live with you. You control the pacing. It only moves in one direction, which is forward. And know that your audience is slightly behind at all times. So when you put up a slide, and that slide has text on it, you got to read the text, because that's exactly what your audience will immediately start to do. But if you're saying something different, or whatever comes after the text, and that's what's happening the moment you put up that slide, your audience is asking about or trying to consume one thing, and you are saying another, and they are frustrated as all heck. So let's make sure that we control the pacing with little nuances like that. Ann does such a good job. She pauses. Now, in this case, the pause isn't for comprehension. The pause is for like the emotion to set in, not the words necessarily, but it's the same thing. She's giving you a beat to feel awkward the way she feels. She is embodying the emotion that she needs the audience to feel. So let's see where the starfish dance lands at the end of this opener for Ann.
Just kind of willy-nilly. And I realized no one ever told me that.
And so you get the relief, right? She builds tension and she relieves it, which is such a good trick as a storyteller, as a comedian. That's just part and parcel of doing what Ann just did with the animated GIF here of Patrick, the starfish from SpongeBob. So what do we learn? There's a lot of things we can learn here, but that framework or those series of prompts I promised at the beginning here, when you open a talk, not only is it on all of us to make sure we deliver well for the audience, immediately set the tone, skip all the filler words and the meandering things that we say to get to the start, and actually just start strong to convey that you're in good hands. Not only is that important, but we have to recognize that to construct the opener ahead of time and rehearse it and dial it in, you're really just making a series of 3 decisions. There's 2 types of openers, cold and warm. You can just say thank you and start, or you can acknowledge something about the warmth in the room, the shared experience, right? You want to make sure you do it in a relevant way that slides into your material. You're not going to start commenting about your last favorite meal in the city you're speaking in that has no bearing on your actual first content. You want to use something thematically related. So if I tend to cold start by saying, thank you so much, there is one question I have that we're not asking enough, and that's my first content to address this question I'm going to give you. Well, then if it's a warm opener version of that question, I'm not talking about the meals I've eaten in this city or how cool the microphone is and then hard pivot to the question. That's wasting the audience's time and distracting them. I need to say like, hey, as a speaker, you're expecting answers, but standing before you today, I have a lot of questions. Questions like, and then I can ask a few questions about the makeup of the event, the agenda that I see, the city that we're in, something that we'd all understand based on our warm shared experience before pivoting to the actual real question we need to be asking. And then away I go with my cold opener, but made warm, right? So relevant details sliding into your material, that's a warm opener. But it's always easier, I think, and just as powerful, if not more so, to just cold start. So there are 2 types of openers, warm and cold. I think this is a warm opener because although Ann didn't talk about the room itself, she's like, okay, well, I'm speaking at an event and I want to acknowledge that I spoke at an event like this last week and I did a thing, right? So she's drafting off that warmth of like, hey, we're all here doing a thing. It's a shared experience. There's warmth in the room and she's acknowledging something about that. So I do think this is a version of a warm opener. A cold open version for Ann might be like, thank you so much for having me. You know how they say dance like nobody's watching? Well, whenever I dance, I tend to do as follows, right? And then she does the starfish. That's a cold open version. No, but she made it real. She drafted off the warmth of the fact that everyone's at an event. So that's the first choice you're navigating for your opener. Cold or warm. Cold just starts. Warm plays on things in the shared experience, sliding in a relevant fashion into the content. Then there's the different ways you can execute the cold or the warm opener, starting with whether or not the type of content will be a story or a series of statements. So that's the second choice you're making. It's cold or warm, and then the 2 types of content for your opener. Are you going to start with a story? That's what Ann did. There's a character, a place, a chronology, questions, and resolution. There's a story there. Or you can open with a series of statements, which is what a lot of us do. And we all recognize that. So those are the 2 choices at the type of content in your cold or warm opener. 2 types of openers, 2 types of content for your openers. And then there's the 2 types of meaning to either your story or your statements. So you have the types of openers, the types of content, and the types of meaning. Will you be figurative or literal? Will you share some kind of metaphor, analogy, something outside or away from your topic to illuminate something about your topic later? Or are you just going to address your topic right away, head on? Ann was giving a talk here actually about how to write like the robots can't. It's a talk about writing. This is a little bit about dancing. So it is figurative. She's showing you, hey, it's kind of like when you write, it's kind of like this moment when I was dancing or giving a speech and dancing, right? She's using it to make a point about letting out your weird when you write. So those are the choices you're making to navigate a strong opener. Let me know what other speeches or what other challenges you're facing when you give speeches that I can then analyze and dissect as a part of this series. Keep making what matters. I'm Jay Acunzo, public speaking coach and strategist, helping you navigate this journey from competence. You got a lot of expertise to resonance. If you're ready to resonate, go ahead and visit jayacunzo.com to learn more. Talk to you soon.